Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fiction genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Once Upon a Time. So quite a few things I want to kind of break down about this episode. Obviously, a big part of this episode was kind of finally getting to see more of Alice's and Hook's story about like how they ended up in the situation that they ended up in. It's actually obviously much like the rest of the show. Like obviously a lot of backgrounds and characters are very tragic, obviously. And the sad thing about it is with Hook's, his being a pride situation, which I guess in a situation is actually kind of good what they did, because it's kind of like the different parallels, because in his case it's like he meets up with Captain Ahab, who his like I'm not that familiar with the Moby Dick storyline, but like to me I associate a lot of his situation with being pride. I think there's revenge as well, but it's also just a pride just to be like, oh, this is my white whale. Hence, like, that, God would be that saying, like, oh yeah, like everyone's searching for their white whale. And so it's just kind of interesting because he kept pushing at Hook. Because every time he kept pushing at Hook, I was like, especially when he pops up later on when Hook was with, Rumpel, I was like, that's actually Gothel in disguise pushing you, isn't it? But it turns out not to be the case. But you can only assume with what Gothel says later on that either they were in it together or she just used that as happy coincidence. Well, I think it's like, nah, it's more likely that she played a part in it because, well, really quickly, it's just because, he has his obsession, his pride of like, oh, I'm going to go after, just because he wants to prove how much of a cool, awesome pirate guy he is, which at the same time, it's like, it's the same thing for Hook, because it's like, he was kind of one of the most feared pirates, but now it's like, oh, you're going soft, you're going weak, and he let that get to him, and that ultimately ended up being what cost him everything. It's also interesting, too, because it ends up being the weapon he needed was, Maui's hook. I thought that's kind of interesting. Depending on the future of the show, like I said, I don't personally know where the show's future is. Like I've kind of thrown out my ideas of like, oh, that's where that is. But nevertheless, that might be something we never get a look at, which it's kind of sad, but it's like, because obviously like this show incorporates a lot more recent Disney stuff. Like obviously like Princess and the Frog, Brave and Frozen. Those are more recent Disney properties and stuff like that they've kind of added to their long list of properties. So it's just, and obviously, Once Upon a Time puts their own little twist to everything, but nevertheless, I thought that was kind of pretty neat that ended up being the weapon he needed. And the whole situation does make me wonder, like, if he really did, like, help, like, Rumpel escape, would it have worked out for him? Because the thing is with Rumpel, you can never trust him, because the whole thing with the deal is like, there's always fine print that you have to read through and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of interesting, too, because it's like, oh, you're turning to your mortal enemy, which then I was like, oh, man, that's so interesting. I was like, oh, you're going to Rumpel? I was like, but then it clicked in my head. I was like, right. This is Wish Rumpel, because I forget, like, which is kind of interesting, because it's like, you have Wish Hook working with Enchanted Forest Rumpel, while in that particular case, it was the other Rumpel from the Wish. Because it's kind of interesting, because technically there's 3 different continuities going down. Because in the Wish world, we don't know too much of the differences. Like, I think last season they showed quite a bit, but I don't remember them going too deeply into everything that's different. That's an aspect that will probably never get touched too much. Obviously, it's playing a bigger role this season, because, the Hook we have with us is, well, Wish Hook, which is, like I said, it's just interesting because there's basically 3 different continuities going on at the same time. Because there's obviously the continuity from the Enchanted Forest storylines with Emma and her stories, because obviously, like, you look at this, and this is like a different continuity because there's a different Cinderella, and the storylines are a lot differently and stuff like that. And then there's also Wish storyline, so it's like 3 different storylines technically all happening at the same time. I mean, it's kind of like a many different world type of thing, which was already established last season, but it's like, there are other worlds, but this season kind of set it up to be like there are other alternate retellings of the story, which I guess kind of fits with the whole motif of Once Upon a Time being like retellings of stories. Like, it's like you think you know the story this well, but it's like actually it's a completely different thing in this case. But nevertheless, my whole point is it's just kind of interesting because he's working with this Rumpel. It was like obviously the story is still the same of like, oh yeah, like the animosity they hold towards each other just because of where their stories are. Because even in the Wish realm, the story still played out the same way and they ended up arch enemies, but still. And it's kind of interesting, something I'd recently, like, after the episode, started thinking about, and I think it's so interesting, that everything Gothel does, like, Gothel is punishing everyone. In this particular case, I was like, why are you going so hard on, like, Hook. I mean, because it's like, it's not like you're a good parent or anything. Like, why do you care so much about this whole situation? It's like, Alice shouldn't mean anything to you because she never did. She was just a means to get you out of the tower. And it's like, so why are you trying to punish Hook? Which, interestingly enough, part of me wonders, like, are they setting Alice up to be like one of the 8 witches he needs? I don't think she is. I'm pretty sure. But, I mean, to be fair, there's a whole Drizella situation. Like, she ended up having magic and stuff like that. So it could be a situation where, because I think in my head, I still think like magic is a hereditary thing, which it kind of is. But just because your parent has magic doesn't mean you are. Because take Henry, for example. I mean, to be fair, Henry's kind of a special case himself because he's an author. And I think that's something I brought up this season is like, he's still yet to use that. But to be fair, that's kind of like the type of power you don't really want to use. So I guess it's something he's never really fostered. And I don't know if that's going to play a role this season or not. I see where applications of it could come in handy, which is kind of interesting. I mean, well, to be fair, this world doesn't have any magic. So I was about to say, like, what all the writing he's done, what his abilities kind of kick in, but it's like, no, he doesn't have magic. So I guess like he needs magic in the air. It has to be a magic world before his like author abilities kick in. But nevertheless, I just get the feeling like that might play a role. It might not. Like I said, he might have not tapped into those abilities in so long that, because it is kind of like a double-edged sword of like so much can go wrong, domino effects, But nevertheless. But getting back to it, what I was bringing up is you take Gothel, like all the people she's messed with that, we really know of, Hook and his whole situation, Victoria and Drizella. And when you break it down, it's almost like a 7 deadly sins type of thing. Like, what did she do with Victoria? She pushed Victoria to kind of test Victoria because that's what this is all about. Because that's what it at least seems like with Hook. Because she's like, oh, you didn't face down your temptation. You gave into your pride, right? And I kept using that word too. Which is, one of the 7 deadly sins. You take Victoria, she tried to make Victoria kind of sway more towards the dark side. Obviously, initially, Rapunzel didn't, but eventually did. And I think her sin was envy. Envy of like, oh, her family that's moved on without her. I guess the argument could potentially, I don't think it's really gluttony. I mean, to be fair, I don't really know all the 7 deadly sins. Like, I have a rough estimate of what they are, but I feel like I don't 100% know what they represent. Like, I have an idea what gluttony is and stuff like that, just because Full Metal Alchemist, but obviously that isn't the necessarily like example that they're going to try and go for in this case, but nevertheless. And you take something like Drizella, which Drizella I would have put up to maybe wrath. Like those, like I don't know whether it's like she's punishing them because she has this coven of 8 witches, and it's like, oh, maybe these people, like these 7 deadly sin people, are kind of like that too. Like because obviously she's looking for something or someone. Maybe that's, what the whole Anastasia situation was about. But in this particular case, or maybe ultimately it ended up being Lucy or something. I don't know. I would assume it's because Anastasia is supposed to be the 8th one. So I guess this was all like search for her. But it's like she was looking for a pure-hearted person to kind of sway. And so I'm guessing, all of these 7 deadly sin tests were part of that to see if you could be tempted by one of the 7 deadly sins. I mean, there still could be more to it, but like I said, for now, it just seems like that was all a test. And maybe from the very beginning, besides just getting out, like that's also a role that Alice would play. And, why Gothel was like also another reason why she needed a daughter, like needed to have a child with someone, not only to get out, but also to act as all of this. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things, kind of like a Lost situation, which like there's so many people that could potentially be the one, obviously, without going too far into the Lost because of spoilers and everything. It's like, oh, one of these people is the one, and it's like, oh, trying to figure out which one of them is the one. Obviously, you watch Lost, you get what I'm talking about. It's final season stuff. But maybe it's kind of like that, and then ultimately she came to the conclusion, Anastasia. So that's where my mindset is. I feel like there still could be more to that, and there's other people too, but I'm sure there are even in the confines of the story, there are other people that we could go, okay, so that's where their stories kind of, they kind of fit that 7 deadly sins situation too. But those are the 3 main ones that I'm really kind of like are clicking in my head, have to be out there. Maybe I'm reading too much in this whole situation. Totally be a plausible situation, but I like to see whether or not that's true, I mean, I didn't even think about that until now. I'm just kind of like, She used the word pride, which, I mean, yeah, that could mean anything, but it's just like, I don't know, that got me thinking about the 7 deadly sins, so we'll see if there's anything to that. But obviously it's kind of sad because you have like this tragic past between them, and even for like Alice, it's like, oh my god, like you didn't come back immediately because he got so caught up in his pride. He was so intent on proving himself as a pirate, he let go of the one thing that he cherished most of all, and that was Alice. Like, she was supposed to be his first priority, but he focused on the wrong thing, and like I said, cost him everything. Even Maui's hook got taken by Gothel, which I can only assume. I don't know whether that's going to be something we deal with in the past or not, or like whether that's going to be something that pops up like present day in like the Hyperion Heights, because that's still kind of out there. Because let's not forget, this was a long, long time ago, so this could be the breaking point that eventually put Hook into becoming the guy that he was, you know? Kind of beer gut and just kind of older and just kind of beaten down, like that Hook. That this could be what it could ultimately be the thing that ended up pushing him down that route. Because I was wondering, how did you come to that? And so it seems like because Alice stayed in that tower, because if I remember correctly, it's like even like the last, like the previous time after this, like previously in the season, like we had saw like, oh wait, they met up again. He's like, whoa, Alice, how are you? Because the last time he saw her, she was in the tower. So I guess it does beg the question, how did she get out? I mean, I wouldn't assume she'd get any help from Gothel, so it must have been someone else. I mean, I guess that's just gonna pop up later on in Alice's story. But so also at the same time, you know, and it's something that Hook had said about her, is the fact is that she sees more. She kind of sees the world in a different way, so she kind of sees things more. Like, she had a nightmare about Gothel, and it kind of ended up coming true. Like, literally what happened in her nightmare is like, oh, like, my dad got pushed out the tower. It's like, well, technically he did, so. Like, the moment he took so long to get back, I was like, I was so certain that that wasn't actually going to be Alice. I was like, that's Gothel. She took Alice or something like that. And then later on put the curse, but it's like, no, it kind of all laid out like that before. But nevertheless, obviously present day, you have the whole situation where like Killian is focusing on all the cases, dealing with this cult and everything, and Eloise still trying to push him, like still not 100% knowing what she's trying to do, because she's telling Killian to kind of know himself if he wants to figure all this out, because like there's a pattern here, but he's not being able to see the pattern until he sees himself, because they're all part of this pattern. Him, Eloise, you know, Gothel, as well as the killer, that there's this pattern here. And Alice tries to warn him away from it all. And it's kind of interesting because even Weaver was like, oh yeah, he pointed out the fact is that she saw more, but when the time came, he didn't like stick up for it. Like, obviously he kept warning Hook, like, do not let Eloise get inside your head, because like the whole painting thing, I was so certain she was going to destroy it, but I guess it was kind of meant to be like a piece of him. It's like more of kind of his string she can kind of pull on, because this entire time, like, she's this missing girl that he's put so much time in this case that's so important. I guess obviously it's supposed to be Gothel took Alice's place. Like, the person he's really looking for this entire time was Alice, but it's like, you've been in front of me this entire time and I just couldn't see it. And Gothel's kind of like focus his eyes and make it go, no, I'm the one that you're looking for. So I don't know what her ultimate goal is. Is she trying to cause even more pain to her own daughter? Like I said, it's like, this is your child you're showing no love to. I don't get what your end goal is with all of this. Like, messing with him. I mean, I guess in the long run, she needs Killian to help her track down this killer without putting the rest of the Coven in danger. And I guess while she has Killian kind of under her thumb, she doesn't have to worry about Weaver as much, because she can kind of like dictate how things kind of go down. And like in this episode, she's kind of like, I'm not going to talk in front of Weaver. So, like I said, I guess like that whole painting thing was like, oh yeah, she has a bit, she's pulling on his strings a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, like here's this painting that represents a piece of your heart, a little bit of you that remembers like who you were on some level, because like, oh, you drew an ocean and a ship. So makes you wonder. Like I said, I was halfway expecting her to destroy it, but she didn't, so that makes it even more suspicious. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. But ultimately what they ended up doing is none of their leads panned out. Apparently, as all deals were truffles. There was that one guy that, like, they were there at the shop, but it was like, oh no, my wife, she died years ago, which is like, most likely he's one of them. Like, I guess everyone's just under the opinion that everyone that's a part of this cult is a lady. I guess it's kind of like, maybe that's where, because the fact is, when they were walking away, he kind of had a suspicious look, so I think he was possibly part of this. But then we ended up finding out that it was all an attack by the last victim, which is the baker. Someone went to the hospital and took care of her. Obviously, Alice was there. but obviously she's not the killer. Like from the very beginning, you're like, no, it's just because Alice is in a confused state. Either she, because she's like, no, she wanted to get answers. Because you even had Weaver trying to explain it. It's like, oh, Tilly, yeah, she had a bad run-in with this group because this group, they took her, the person that she cared about most, the person that would understand her the most, her dad, away from her. Because Tilly's in that position where it's like she's caught halfway between remembering who she is and this whole curse. That's kind of been her storyline, because it's like, because of that, she's struggling, and she just seems a little off kilter, a little crazy. But that's just because her mind is kind of split between the two realities. Like Weaver and her dad said, she sees more than most people do. So for her, it's like, I think it's because her brain is trying to compensate for the fact that she knows there's something more. She sees more because she sees Eloise for the monster that she is. But it's just, to anyone else, it just sounds like ramblings. That's why I'm always thought it was kind of weird that Rumple didn't stick out for her. But maybe it's because for Rumple, it's like he can't have Killian and the others wake up yet. Like, things have to play out in a certain way to make sure that there is a happily ever after for everyone in this particular situation. Maybe that's the goal. I don't know. Or maybe he just thinks like, oh, Tilly's a little confused. Like, maybe he doesn't really chalk it up to her kind of waking up to a certain extent. Maybe he just thinks it's kind of like her delusions kicking in. So maybe that's another reason why he didn't stack up. I don't know. I mean, he sticks up later on when even Killian's like, no, there's no way Tilly did this. And even Weaver's like, no, there's no way she did do it. So we need to find, he's like, because Killian's going to be looking for the real killer, which is like I said, it's just, she went there looking for answers because something drew her there to probably try and get answers about her dad, whether she realized it or not. And she just happened to probably hide underneath the bed when the real killer came in. Maybe the real killer recognized that she was there too. Who knows? But it does not look good, especially because Tilly's on her own now. That means the real killer could track her down the silencer, because she might know who they really are, depending on how much she saw while she was in the hospital room. So, like, a crazy turn of events in that story. Like I said, overall, that storyline is just so, tragic. It's like your daughter's right there in front of you. I mean, it's literally the same. It's like the opposite of Ronnie. It's like, yeah, Henry's right there in front of Regina, but she can't say anything. And then, like, I mean, their situation's a little worse because it's like, well, there's the curse between them. And if the curse gets broken, the curse that keeps them from getting too close, I guess it makes, there is no magic, so it doesn't like affect them yet. But I am curious, because I guess in a metaphorical sense, that curse is already playing out a little bit. And I guess, Eloise is feeding into that a little bit more, because I'm sure she had some shape or form set that up. So I'm curious to find out who this killer is and what they are up to killing off these coven witches, which could also mean that, definitely Anastasia could potentially be one of the targets in this whole situation, which obviously I was coming full circle a little bit with the other part of the storyline, but I'll kind of get back to that soon enough. I'll get to that soon enough, because the other half deals with kind of an interesting developments. Obviously, like, Henry's talking a little bit more about last episode where Lucy found out the truth, and obviously she's trying to build a bridge between Jacinda and Henry, even kind of saying stuff that she doesn't mean. She's like, oh, Henry, yeah, he used to be my favorite writer, but it's like, you have to grow up, can't believe in fairy tales forever. And you see her saying this, and it breaks your heart, because you can tell it's breaking her heart, because she knows Henry's her dad, and she knows she's splitting her parents up. But if it means keeping her dad alive, then she'll do whatever it takes. And it's just like, it's so hard, because she's even trying to play it up like, oh yeah, after everything that's happened, grandma dying and everything, and me being in the hospital, it's like, I decided, I need you to be there for me, Mom, not just out with some random guy. It's like, random guy, it's Henry. It's like, no, yeah, it's just, trying to pretend like he doesn't matter as much. And even Jacinda's like, I don't get it. Like, Lucy's hiding something from me, and she just kind of feels bad because she doesn't know what to do. Even going as far as being like, she doesn't even have Victoria to blame, because all this situation, whatever's going on with Lucy, her inability to help or do anything, like her problems, she feels like I'm responsible because I'm her mom and I should be able to fix it. So I don't have anyone else to blame but myself. So I don't know, it's just a sad situation on top of a sad situation, especially for Henry. It's like, oh yeah, man, I thought there was something there, but Lucy's pushing me away. And even though there's something between me and Jacinda, it's just kind of like, like, it got a little bit of hope and happiness, and then it's kind of all pushed and taken away from, which is sad. Which still begs the question, like, where did that page come from? Like I said, was that like a last minute thing for Victoria trying to make things right, trying to warn Lucy, like, oh yeah, I mean, Lucy already knows things were real because Victoria told her, like, oh, everything you know is real. So that, or was it the book itself, the real book, wherever it is, wherever Victoria hid it, like trying to warn Lucy about it until like the situation could be remedied. They cannot break the curse. Even had like along the same lines, like Ivy and Henry, Drizella, because she started kind of making out with him, and Henry's like, no, 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 no. And it's just because like she's kind of got this empty hole in her from Victoria dying, which she never would have thought she would have felt that. But she's feeling a little lost, and it's like, oh, Henry, you're a little lost. So, but Henry's like, I'm not the right person for you. You're just reaching out for someone to help you, but it's like, I'd help you, but it's like, I'm not the person that you should be with to kind of like help you with that situation. You have to find that person kind of on your own. And he interestingly brought up an interesting thought I didn't even think about. It was like, Victoria is gone, your family is gone, but you still have other family. You have Jacinda, your sister, and you also have Lucy, which immediately, like, obviously her and Jacinda kind of buried the hatchet a little bit, even to the point that Jacinda actually gives her a hug. And even like, Ivy's like, wait, what's going on here? Like, she looks so confused. Because Ivy says super nice things of being like, you're actually a really good mother. Yes, you have all these other faults, but at the end of the day, you are a good mother and you love your daughter. It's like, at the very least, you're very open about it. Referencing Victoria not telling her how she really felt until like right before she died. And it's like, which left her feeling so messed up because it's like, I've hated you for so long. And what do? You tell me you love me and you sacrifice yourself for me. Like, how am I supposed to handle that? It didn't come up, but I was kind of halfway expecting her to run into Lucy. Like, Lucy is not going to be a fan of Ivy because she knows the truth. She knows who Ivy really is and what Ivy's done. Or does she know that Ivy's the one that put the curse on Henry? I don't think she does she? She only knows that the curse is there, but she doesn't know that Ivy's the one that cast it. Might find out eventually. That might change things. We might see Ivy trying to get closer to Lucy, that being her niece and everything, but then part of me's like, I don't know, man. Like, that might be something Lucy ends up discovering on her own, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. Because it's like, oh yeah, the reason why my parents can't get together is because of my aunt. It's like, that might take a dark turn, but we'll have to wait and see. What actually took me by surprise is Ivy's talking about Anastasia, because she's like, oh yeah, she knows what she needs to do, and that's finish what her mom started. And it's like, I figured it would have something to do with Anastasia. It's like, her mom did everything she did, all the bad stuff was purposely for Anastasia, so Ivy wants to do that. She wants to save her other sister, and she's getting Henry's help, and it's like, oh, and she's like, I have a feeling that you can be the hero that I need, and it's like, okay, that's definitely a pairing I wasn't expecting to see again. Like, obviously it's not going to be an intimate thing. I mean, that is her brother-in-law, so it's going to be interesting seeing them, like, how they handle this whole Anastasia thing. I mean, which obviously we know connects to Eloise and the cult, and Weaver and Killian's investigation, so there's going to be crossover there, I would assume. Have they crossed paths yet? I don't remember if they crossed paths earlier this season. Drizella and Rumpel. Does she know that he's awake? I don't remember. That is an interesting thing. And then the final note was Lucy going to Victoria, which I was so happy about. Like, I was like, that's so cool. And then, like, did I say Victoria? I meant Regina. I don't remember what name I said. She went to Regina. Sorry. A little scatterbrain here. And Regina told her, she's like, yeah, I know exactly who I am. And she's like, yes! And so it's like, oh my God. She's like, and don't call me grandma. But she's like, apparently they have like a lot of problems with that. I guess it's like, oh, I don't want to, grandma just makes me sound old. I'm sure it's also like, oh yeah, the last thing you want is anyone really knowing the truth and stuff like that. So just don't go around calling me grandma. But it might also just be the fact that don't call me grandma. Because I remember that being a thing with Belle a few seasons back, like, Henry would walk up to her, like, oh, hey, grandma. She's like, don't call me grandma, just call me Belle. It's like, it's kind of, I guess because it's like when you're young, you don't want to be referred to as a grandma, because grandmoms sound old, but still. So they are going to work together. And even like that, it's like, oh yeah, like, me and Henry, when he was younger, he had the operation. So it's like Lucy and her have an operation now too, which is, it's sad because you see Lucy all excited because she has someone she can confide into, but at the same time, it's like it leaves Regina conflicted too, because that's another element that Lucy doesn't know. The one who actually cast the spell that put them in this situation is Regina. She's the one that kind of activated the curse. Yes, Ivy or Drizella is the one who ended up, putting the curse in the first, like poisoning Henry in the first place, sure, but it's still like Regina who cast the curse. I mean, to be fair, it was all for the sake of, protecting her son, but I don't know if that's going to be something, because it's probably something Lucy might not get the entire truth. So I'm curious to see which way it's going to go down. Would she find out about what Regina did, or would she find out more about what Gisela did? I feel like what Gisela did is the worst. Like, Regina, like, did it out of love, and everyone around her kind of supported her doing what she was doing because it meant, like, protecting her son. So no one's going to fault her for that, so. But how is she going to handle that? Like, Lucy's going to be wanting to try and find a way to, I mean, to be fair, like, she wants the exact same thing too. Like, I guess because it makes her feel bad because it's like she got what she was trying to accomplish, preventing Jacinda and Henry from getting together, and now she kind of has an accomplice in that. But it's like they're going to try and save their family. Just curious to see what way that could be. Maui's hook could break prisons. I don't know if that could apply to a curse or not. Like, could that break? That might be like the twist. That might be is like, oh, it can break a curse, but maybe it can only break one curse before it shatters or something like that. So it's like, does it break the curse between Alice and Hook, or the one that's inside of Henry? Like, that might be something we see, because like the thing to make them still connected in the curse that still kept Jacinda and Lucy together was originally meant for Hook and Alice, but Hook ended up giving it to Jacinda so that her and Lucy would be connected, so that they would still be together under this curse. So I don't know, like I said, a lot of stuff to take away from this episode and break down. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode with all of this continuing forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good